Black woman helps a millionaire CEO fix his computer. He's instantly drawn to her and falls in love. But when he notices the necklace around her neck, he freezes. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The fluorescent lights of the executive floor buzzed overhead as Maya Jackson knelt beside the sleek computer tower. Her nimble fingers worked methodically, disconnecting cables and checking connections with practiced efficiency. As the head of the IT department's emergency response team at Horizon Enterprises, this was just another day in her constantly ringing world of technological catastrophes. Except today's emergency call had come from the 50th floor, the executive suite where few employees ever ventured. How much longer? The deep voice behind her carried the unmistakable tone of a man accustomed to immediate results. Maya didn't bother turning around. She'd grown tired of the impatient tapping of expensive Italian leather shoes against marble flooring. Hard to say until I identify the problem, Mr. Donovan. Could be 5 minutes, could be 50. She kept her voice professional but firm. Maya had learned long ago that even millionaire CEOs needed boundaries when it came to her work. Alexander Donovan sighed, the sound of a man who rarely heard the word wait. His company had revolutionized telecommunications in just 7 years, making him one of the youngest billionaires in the country at 36. But today, his empire had ground to a halt because his computer refused to boot, and the board presentation started in 40 minutes. Perhaps I could use someone else's computer for the presentation, he suggested, checking his platinum watch for the 4th time in as many minutes. Maya pulled out a corrupted hard drive and held it up without looking back at him. Unless someone else has your proprietary software and presentation files, I wouldn't recommend it. She finally turned, holding his gaze directly. I'm your best chance at making that meeting, Mr. Donovan. So perhaps you could give me some space to work? Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, then the faintest trace of respect. In the 3 years since founding his company, few employees spoke to him with such directness. He nodded once and retreated to the leather couch across his spacious office. Maya returned to her work, conscious of his eyes still watching her. At 32, she'd spent over a decade in IT, fighting through an industry that still raised eyebrows at a black woman in a technical leadership role. Her braids were pulled back in a practical ponytail, her simple charcoal pantsuit chosen for function rather than fashion. She had no time for anything else between managing her team and caring for her grandmother, whose medical bills had been the reason Maya had taken this corporate position instead of launching her own cybersecurity firm. You didn't come through the regular IT channels, he observed after several minutes of silence. No, I didn't. Maya connected a diagnostic tool to the disassembled computer. Your assistant called my direct line, said it was an emergency that couldn't wait for the ticket system. And you came immediately. That's my job. The diagnostic screen flashed with error codes that made Maya frown. Your encryption software is fighting with your presentation program. That's why it crashed. Her fingers flew across her laptop keyboard as she worked on a solution. Alexander stood and approached, keeping a respectful distance this time. Can you fix it? Already am. Maya's voice held quiet confidence. I wrote a patch that should resolve the conflict without compromising your security protocols. She glanced up briefly. You have some serious protection on these files. Military-grade encryption doesn't play well with others. The presentation contains sensitive information about our next product launch. He paused. How do you know about military-grade encryption? Maya's lips curved slightly. I worked for the Department of Defense before coming to Horizon. This kind of conflict resolution was my specialty. She didn't elaborate on the classified nature of her previous work or mention that she'd personally designed security systems that protected national secrets. I see. Alexander's voice held new interest. Yet you're responding to executive floor computer issues? I respond to critical systems failures throughout the building. Your assistant made it sound like the company might collapse if your presentation didn't happen. Maya's tone carried a hint of amusement as she reconnected components and closed up the tower. It very well might. His voice had lost its imperious edge. We're unveiling technology that could secure a $50 million military contract. Maya nodded, understanding the stakes better now. She pressed the power button and the computer hummed to life. There. Should work perfectly now. She pulled a small flash drive from her toolkit. I've also loaded this with a portable version of your presentation, just in case. It's encrypted, but I've set it to recognize your fingerprint through the biometric scanner on the drive. Alexander accepted the backup with genuine surprise. That's incredibly thorough. That's what you pay me for. Maya packed her tools efficiently, preparing to return to her office 3 floors below. The patch I installed is temporary. Your system will need a more permanent solution, but it will hold through today's presentation. Thank you, Ms. He paused, realizing he didn't know her name. Jackson. Maya Jackson. She extended her hand professionally. Head of Critical Systems Response. He took her hand, and something unexpected passed between them, a current that had nothing to do with the electronics she'd just repaired. Alexander held the handshake a moment longer than necessary, his eyes registering something new as he truly looked at her for the first time. I'd like you to attend the presentation, Ms. Jackson, he said suddenly, in case there are any technical issues. Maya raised an eyebrow. Your regular IT support will be there. That's standard for major presentations. I'd prefer someone who understands what they're looking at. This technology is sensitive. His tone made it clear this wasn't really a request, despite the polite phrasing. Maya checked her watch. She had 3 other tickets in her queue and a team meeting in 2 hours. I'll need to rearrange some things. Do it. He was already reaching for his phone. I'll have my assistant send you the details. 20 minutes later, Maya found herself in the back of the company's largest conference room as Alexander Donovan commanded the attention of 12 military officials and the entire executive board. She had to admit, he was impressive. The faltering, impatient man from earlier had transformed into a charismatic visionary, explaining complex technology in terms that made even the most technical concepts accessible. The presentation went flawlessly, with no further technical issues. Maya watched with professional pride as her quick fix held up under the pressure of animated graphics and embedded video demonstrations. When it concluded to enthusiastic applause, she prepared to slip out unnoticed. Ms. Jackson? Alexander's voice stopped her at the door. The room was emptying as executives escorted military officials to a catered lunch. A moment, please. Maya turned, maintaining her professional demeanor. The system performed perfectly, Mr. Donovan. You shouldn't have any further issues today. That's not why I called you back. He approached, lowering his voice slightly. You saved more than my presentation today. You saved a contract that's been in negotiation for 18 months. Just doing my job, she replied, though the intensity of his gaze made her uncomfortable in a way she couldn't quite identify. Have dinner with me tonight. The words weren't framed as a question. Maya blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. Excuse me? Dinner, to thank you properly for your exceptional work. His eyes held hers with unsettling focus. I make it a point to recognize talent in my organization. Maya had heard rumors about Alexander Donovan, his driven personality, his demanding standards, his reputation with beautiful women who appeared on his arm at charity galas. None of those rumors suggested he recognized talent with private dinners. That's not necessary, Mr. Donovan. Your thanks is enough. She kept her tone coolly professional. If you'll excuse me, I have other systems waiting for attention. She turned to leave, but his next words stopped her. 7 o'clock, Maya. I'll send a car. There was a note in his voice she couldn't decipher. Not quite command, not quite request. We have more to discuss than just today's technical rescue. Maya turned back, curiosity despite herself. What exactly would we be discussing? Something like satisfaction flickered across his face at having caught her interest. Your file crossed my desk last week. Budget reviews for department heads. He stepped closer. You've repeatedly turned down promotions that would take you away from hands-on technical work. Your performance reviews are exceptional. And your background, he paused significantly, is fascinating. Maya felt a chill. Her DoD work was classified. What exactly did he know? 7 o'clock, he repeated, interpreting her silence as agreement. Nothing formal, just a conversation I think we both might find valuable. Before she could formulate a response, his assistant appeared at his side with urgent messages, and the moment to refuse had passed. Maya found herself walking back to her office, unsettled by the encounter and uncertain why she hadn't simply declined. As she stepped into the elevator, her phone chimed with a calendar invitation. Dinner meeting with A. Donovan, CEO, 7 p.m. La Maison. She stared at the screen, at the name of one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. This was no casual thank you dinner. What exactly had Alexander Donovan seen in her file that interested him so much? And why did she feel that whatever happened tonight would change the carefully constructed balance of her life? Maya stood in her modest apartment, staring at her open closet with uncharacteristic indecision. The invitation to La Maison had thrown her carefully structured evening into disarray. She'd canceled her weekly video call with her grandmother, rescheduled a system diagnostic, and now faced the absurd dilemma of what to wear to dinner with the CEO of her company. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, pulling out a simple black dress she'd worn to a colleague's wedding last year. It was the most formal thing she owned, and even that felt insufficient for a restaurant where reservations were made months in advance and the chef had his own reality show. As she dressed, Maya's mind kept returning to Alexander Donovan's words. Her file had crossed his desk. What exactly had caught his attention? She'd been careful to maintain a low profile since joining Horizon Enterprises, deliberately avoiding positions that might put her in the corporate spotlight. The fewer questions about her past, the better. At precisely 6:30, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Car waiting downstairs. AD. The sleek black sedan that awaited her had tinted windows and a driver who opened the door without speaking. As Maya settled into the butter-soft leather seat, she wondered if all executives lived this way, or if Alexander Donovan's lifestyle was exceptional even among the corporate elite. La Maison occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise, its glass walls offering panoramic views of the city lights. Maya was escorted directly to a private dining room where Alexander stood looking out at the skyline, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He'd changed from his boardroom suit to a charcoal jacket over a black shirt, the top buttons undone in casual elegance. He turned as she entered, and something flickered in his eyes as they traveled from her face down to her simple dress and back again. "Maya," he said, her name sounding different in his voice than it ever had before. "Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" The words slipped out before she could stop them, honest rather than diplomatic. To her surprise, he laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face from intimidating to almost boyish. "Probably not. I've been told I'm somewhat insistent when I want something." The phrasing sent an unexpected shiver through her. Maya moved to the window, partly to hide her reaction, partly to admire the view that probably cost thousands per hour in rental fees. "It's beautiful," she said, nodding toward the cityscape. "Yes," he agreed, but when she turned, she found him watching her rather than the view. "Wine?" She nodded, and he poured from a decanter that likely cost more than her monthly rent. As he handed her the glass, his fingers brushed against hers. Deliberately, she thought. "You're uncomfortable," he observed as they seated themselves at the small, intimate table. "Why?" Maya took a sip of wine before answering, buying time. "In my experience, CEOs don't normally take IT staff to dinner at five-star restaurants no matter how many presentations they save. And in my experience, IT staff don't usually have classified Department of Defense backgrounds and turn down 5 promotions in 3 years. His directness surprised her. So perhaps we're both experiencing something unusual tonight. Maya set down her glass. What exactly do you know about my background, Mr. Donovan? Alexander, he corrected. Or Alex, though few people use that. He studied her for a moment. I know you worked on classified security systems. I know you have multiple patents under a different name, and I know you're dramatically overqualified for your current position. Maya felt her pulse quicken. She'd been careful, so careful, to keep her past compartmentalized. How? I make it my business to know exceptional people when they cross my path. A waiter appeared silently at his side, and Alexander nodded permission to serve. I think you'll like the chef's tasting menu. I took the liberty of ordering for us before you arrived. The first course appeared before them, something artistic involving scallops and foam. Maya tried to gather her thoughts as she took a small bite, the flavors complex and delicious despite her distraction. You've been researching me, she said finally. It wasn't a question. Yes. His honesty was almost refreshing after years of corporate doublespeak. Initially because I review all department heads during budget season, then more thoroughly after I saw your credentials, and most intensively after you fixed my computer today with a level of expertise that doesn't match your official resume. That's invasive. That's business. He took a sip of wine. You're an asset that's being underutilized, Maya. The question is why? The direct question caught her off guard. For 3 years, no one at Horizon had looked beyond her carefully constructed professional facade. She'd done her job exceptionally well but had deliberately remained in the background. Maybe I'm exactly where I want to be, she replied carefully. No, the certainty in his voice was jarring. You're hiding. The question is from what or whom? Maya set down her fork, appetite vanishing. I think this dinner was a mistake. Because I'm asking questions no one else has bothered to ask? His gaze was penetrating. Or because you're afraid of the answers? Because you're my boss, and this conversation feels like an interrogation rather than a thank you dinner. She met his eyes directly. My past is exactly that, past. I do my job exceptionally well. That should be enough. Alexander leaned back, studying her with that same intense focus he'd shown during their first encounter. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. You're right. I apologize. He gestured for the waiter to clear their barely touched first course. Let's start again. Tell me something about yourself that isn't in any file. Something you'd like me to know. The request was so disarming that Maya found herself answering honestly. I teach coding to girls from underprivileged neighborhoods on Saturdays. We meet at the community center on 43rd Street. Interest sparked in his eyes. Why? Because when I was 12, a teacher gave me my first computer, an ancient desktop someone had thrown away. It changed my life. She smiled slightly at the memory. I want other girls to have that moment, especially those who might never get it otherwise. Something in Alexander's expression shifted, the corporate mask slipping to reveal genuine interest. That's not what I expected. What did you expect? Something safe. Corporate-approved volunteer work that looks good on a resume. He shook his head slightly. Not something personal. The second course arrived, a delicate mushroom soup with truffle oil, and the conversation shifted to safer ground. He asked about her team, her approach to system management, her thoughts on Horizon's technological infrastructure. Maya found herself responding with increasing animation, surprised by his technical knowledge and the insightful questions he posed. By the third course, she'd almost forgotten the uncomfortable beginning of their dinner. Alexander proved to be not just intelligent, but surprisingly funny, with a dry wit that emerged after his second glass of wine. He shared stories about the early days of his company, the risks he'd taken, the nights he'd slept on an office couch because he couldn't afford both rent and payroll. "Everyone sees the success now," he said, gesturing around at their opulent surroundings. "No one remembers the 3 years when failure seemed imminent daily." "Is that why you push so hard?" Maya asked, genuinely curious. "Because you remember how close you came to losing it all?" Alexander looked startled, as if no one had ever asked him that question before. "Yes," he answered after a moment. "Exactly that." The main course arrived, a perfectly cooked duck breast with cherry reduction, and their conversation continued to flow more naturally than Maya would have thought possible. She found herself relaxing, the wine and atmosphere lowering her usual professional guard. "Your grandmother," Alexander said as they finished the main course. "She's ill?" Maya stiffened. "How do you know about my grandmother?" "You mentioned rescheduling a call with her when you accepted my calendar invitation." His tone was casual, but his eyes missed nothing. "Your assistant made it sound important." "It is." Maya set down her fork. "She raised me after my parents died. She's been battling cancer for 3 years. I'm sorry." His sympathy seemed genuine. "Is she receiving good care?" Maya hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "The best I can afford. She's in a clinical trial at Memorial Hospital that's showing promise." Alexander nodded, not pushing further, but she sensed him filing away the information. As dessert was served, a chocolate creation that defied physics, he steered the conversation toward her technical insights about the company's systems. By the time coffee arrived, they were discussing potential security improvements with the ease of longtime colleagues. "You see the vulnerabilities the same way I do," he said, sounding almost surprised. "Most people can't visualize system architecture that way." "Most people didn't spend 4 years designing security protocols that had to be unhackable," she replied without thinking, then immediately regretted the reference to her classified past. Alexander didn't pounce on the slip, merely nodding as if she'd confirmed something he already suspected. As the evening drew to a close, Maya realized she'd spent nearly 3 hours in his company, and most of it had been surprisingly pleasant. "Thank you for dinner," she said as they stood to leave. "It was unexpected. In a good way, I hope." His eyes held hers, and that strange current passed between them again, professional interest mixed with something more personal. "In an interesting way," she replied diplomatically. Alexander smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his features. "I'd like to continue our conversation about system architecture. Perhaps lunch next week?" Maya hesitated. Dinner with the CEO once could be explained as a thank you. Lunch would signal something else entirely to the corporate gossips. And yet she genuinely enjoyed their technical discussion. "To talk about work," she clarified. "Of course." His tone was professional, but something in his eyes suggested he understood the multiple layers of their interaction perfectly well. Strictly business. As they walked toward the elevator, Alexander's hand came to rest lightly at the small of her back, a gesture that could be interpreted as merely polite but felt more significant. The touch sent warmth spreading through her, reminding Maya that it had been a very long time since she'd allowed herself to notice a man as anything other than a colleague. The elevator doors opened, and as they stepped inside, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in her carefully controlled life, something that both thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. The next morning, Maya arrived at her office earlier than usual, determined to refocus on her work and push thoughts of Alexander Donovan to the periphery of her mind. She had just settled at her desk when her assistant, Raj, appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with excitement. "Is it true?" he asked without preamble. "You had dinner with Donovan himself last night?" Maya froze. "How could you possibly know that already?" His executive assistant mentioned it to her cousin who works in accounting, who told her friend in marketing, who texted my boyfriend. Raj waved away the convoluted path of information. So it is true. What was it like? Is he as intense up close as he seems from a distance? Did he actually smile? It was a business dinner, Raj. Maya kept her voice neutral. He wanted to discuss system security after the presentation issue yesterday. At La Maison? Raj raised a skeptical eyebrow. With wine and the chef's private tasting menu? Maya looked up sharply. And how exactly do you know those details? Raj had the grace to look slightly abashed. The hostess at La Maison is in my yoga class. She was impressed that Donovan brought someone who wasn't a supermodel or a potential investor. Wonderful. Maya pinched the bridge of her nose. So the entire company gossip network is now analyzing my dinner. Pretty much. Raj's expression turned sympathetic. For what it's worth, most people are just shocked he knows anyone below executive level exists. Maya sighed and turned to her computer. Let's focus on work, shall we? I need the diagnostic results from last night's server test. Raj nodded and retreated, but the interruption had confirmed Maya's fears. In a corporate environment that thrived on gossip, dinner with the CEO was equivalent to painting a target on her back. The careful anonymity she'd cultivated for 3 years had been compromised in a single evening. She was deep into code analysis when her phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. Lunch tomorrow 1 p.m. I'll come to your office. AD. Maya stared at the message, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of her, the professional who valued her privacy and carefully maintained boundaries, wanted to decline. Another part, one she'd neglected for too long, was intrigued by the connection she'd felt with Alexander, by the rare experience of being intellectually matched in conversation. Before she could reply, a calendar invitation appeared on her screen for Security Architecture Discussion, A. Donovan and M. Jackson. The formal title made her smile despite herself. He'd understood her concern about appearances and had framed their meeting in explicitly professional terms. She accepted the invitation, then forced herself to focus on the security audit she'd been conducting. By midday, she'd nearly succeeded in putting Alexander out of her mind when a company-wide email arrived in her inbox. All staff, please join me in congratulating Maya Jackson, who has been appointed to the newly created position of Chief Security Architect, effective immediately. Ms. Jackson will report directly to me and will be responsible for overhauling our corporate security infrastructure. Alexander Donovan, CEO. Maya stared at the screen in disbelief. She hadn't applied for any position. She hadn't even been interviewed. And now, less than 12 hours after their dinner, Alexander had created a C-level position for her without so much as a consultation. Her phone immediately began ringing with congratulatory calls from colleagues. Her email inbox flooded with messages, and behind it all, Maya felt a rising tide of panic. High-profile corporate positions meant visibility. Visibility meant questions. Questions meant risk to the new identity she'd built so carefully after leaving her government work. She grabbed her phone and typed, "What have you done? We need to talk, now." The response came almost immediately. "My office, 10 minutes." Maya took the executive elevator to the 50th floor, her anger building with each passing floor. By the time she reached Alexander's office, she was furious. His assistant, recognizing her from yesterday, waved her directly into his private office without announcement. Alexander was standing by the window, much as he had been at the restaurant, but his posture tensed when he saw her expression. "You had no right," Maya said without preamble, closing the door firmly behind her. "You can't just create positions and appoint people without their consent. I'm the CEO, that's exactly what I can do." His voice was calm, but his eyes were watchful. "The position needed to be created, and you're the most qualified person to fill it." "Based on what? One dinner conversation?" Maya crossed her arms. "Or was this your plan all along? To research me, charm me over dinner, then force me into a position I never asked for?" "Force you?" Alexander's eyebrows rose. It's a promotion with a substantial salary increase and the authority to implement the very changes you spent most of dinner explaining we needed." "That's not the point!" Maya struggled to keep her voice down. "The point is, you made this decision unilaterally without consulting me, without considering that I might have reasons for staying in my current position. Reasons like hiding your capabilities, like keeping your head down so no one asks questions about your past." Alexander stepped closer, his voice lowering. "You're wasting your talent, Maya, and Horizon is suffering for it. You don't understand the risks? Then explain them to me." He gestured to the sitting area of his office. "Help me understand why someone with your abilities is deliberately underemploying herself and living in a one-bedroom apartment while paying for her grandmother's experimental cancer treatments." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "You investigated my personal life?" Something like regret flickered across his features. "I had a background check run before creating the position. Standard procedure for C-level appointments. There is nothing standard about this situation." Maya remained standing, too agitated to sit. "You can't simply research my life and then use what you find to manipulate me into a position that serves your interests." Alexander's expression hardened. "Is that what you think this is? Manipulation? What else would you call it?" She met his gaze directly. "You find an employee with a background you find intriguing, you take her to dinner, you discover she has financial vulnerabilities, and the next day you create a high-paying position she never asked for." He flinched as if she'd struck him. "That's not—" He stopped, regrouped. "That's not how I see this situation at all." "How do you see it then?" Alexander ran a hand through his hair, a surprisingly human gesture from someone who maintained such tight control. "I see an exceptionally talented security expert who, for reasons I don't fully understand, is hiding in a mid-level position. I see systems that need her expertise. And yes, I see someone working herself to exhaustion while trying to support a sick relative." He met her eyes. "What kind of person would I be if I didn't offer a solution that benefits everyone involved?" Maya felt her anger wavering in the face of his apparent sincerity. "The kind who respects professional boundaries and normal corporate procedures. Normal procedures are for normal situations." Alexander stepped closer. "Nothing about you is normal, Maya. Your background, your abilities, the way you see systems, they're extraordinary. And extraordinary talent deserves extraordinary measures." Despite herself, Maya felt a flutter of response to the intensity in his voice, the genuine admiration in his eyes. No one had championed her abilities this way since her mentor at the DoD. "The position comes with triple your current salary," Alexander continued, pressing his advantage. "Complete autonomy over security architecture, a team of your choosing, and direct report to me, bypassing all the bureaucratic layers that currently stifle your recommendations." Maya hesitated. The offer was tempting, not just financially, but professionally. She'd been frustrated for years by the slow implementation of her security suggestions, the red tape that prevented real innovation. "What if I say no?" she asked, needing to understand her options. "Then I retract the announcement, apologize for the premature communication, and you return to your current position." He spread his hands. "No negative consequences, though I think you'd be making a mistake." Maya studied him, trying to discern his true motives. "Why are you doing this? Really?" Alexander was silent for a moment, seeming to consider his answer carefully. "Because in the 3 years since I took Horizon public, you're the first person I've met who sees technology the way I do, as both a system of vulnerabilities and a landscape of possibilities." He paused. "And because I believe you're hiding from something, and I don't think you should have to sacrifice your career to stay safe." The statement was so close to the truth that Maya felt momentarily dizzy. "You don't know what you're talking about." "No, I don't," he agreed easily. "But I'd like to. Not to exploit it, Maya. To help protect you from it." She laughed, the sound harsh even to her own ears. You can't protect me. No one can. Try me." The two words held such conviction that Maya found herself tempted to believe him. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. "The board is waiting," his assistant's voice came through the speaker. Alexander never took his eyes from Maya's face. "Tell them I'll be 10 minutes late." "I should go," Maya said, suddenly exhausted by the emotional confrontation. "I need to think about this. Take the rest of the day." Alexander's voice gentled. "Think it through. The position will still be there tomorrow." He hesitated, then added, "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry about the announcement. You're right, I should have consulted you first." The unexpected apology caught Maya off guard. In her experience, men with power rarely admitted mistakes. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I'll let you know my decision tomorrow." As she turned to leave, Alexander called after her. "Our lunch is still on the calendar, whatever you decide." Maya nodded without turning back, unwilling to let him see the conflict in her expression. She took the elevator to the lobby, needing to escape the building and its curious eyes. The promotion announcement had made her the center of corporate attention, exactly what she'd spent 3 years avoiding. As she pushed through the revolving doors into the bright afternoon sunlight, Maya felt a prickling sensation at the back of her neck, the old instinct that told her she was being watched. She scanned the busy street automatically, a habit from her previous life. Nothing seemed amiss among the typical downtown crowd until her gaze caught on a man across the street, partially hidden behind a newspaper. Something about his posture, the careful way he held the paper to obscure his face while maintaining sight lines to the building entrance, triggered her trained perception. Maya ducked into the crowd, using pedestrians as cover while she circled to get a better view. When she emerged at a different angle, the man was gone, leaving only a discarded newspaper on the bench where he'd been sitting. Coincidence, she told herself. Paranoia from an old life. But the sensation of exposure, of being found after years of careful anonymity, persisted as she made her way home. Whatever she decided about Alexander's offer, one thing was becoming increasingly clear. Her carefully constructed world was changing, whether she wanted it to or not. Maya's apartment felt different when she returned that evening. Smaller somehow, as if her encounter with Alexander's world had shifted her perspective. She kicked off her shoes and went directly to the closet in her bedroom, reaching behind hanging clothes to the lockbox hidden against the wall. The metal box contained the remnants of her previous life, a life where she hadn't been Maya Jackson, IT specialist, but Dr. Amara Jenkins, one of the youngest senior security architects in Department of Defense history. Her fingers trembled slightly as she entered the combination and lifted the lid. Inside lay her old credentials, a flash drive containing encrypted data and a small velvet pouch. She tipped the pouch into her palm, and a delicate gold necklace slid out. The pendant was unusual, a small golden key with intricate scrollwork and a tiny blue stone embedded at its center. "I shouldn't have kept you," she whispered to the necklace. It was her one concession to sentiment, the one object she'd allowed herself to bring from her old life. A gift from her former fiancé, James, on the night he'd proposed. 3 weeks before he disappeared while testing a security system she'd designed. 3 weeks before everything fell apart. Maya closed her fingers around the pendant, feeling the familiar contours press into her palm. For 3 years she'd kept it hidden, too painful to wear but too precious to discard. Now, staring at the gleaming metal, she made a decision. She fastened the necklace around her throat, the weight of it unfamiliar after so long. If her careful anonymity was already compromised, perhaps it was time to stop hiding entirely. Time to reclaim pieces of herself she'd locked away. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. "Decision made?" Maya touched the necklace, drawing strength from it. "Yes," she typed back. "I'll take the position." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, "Good. Lunch tomorrow to discuss transition details." She set the phone down, wondering if she'd made the right choice. The promotion would give her financial security for her grandmother's treatments, but it also meant stepping into the spotlight. If anyone from her past was watching, if that man outside the building hadn't been a coincidence, she'd just made herself much easier to find. The next morning, Maya dressed with unusual care, selecting a charcoal suit that was more tailored than her usual workwear and a shell in deep blue that complemented the stone in her necklace. As she rode the elevator to her office, she was acutely aware of the glances from colleagues, some curious, some congratulatory, a few clearly resentful. "The Golden Girl returns," Raj said when she entered, presenting her with a cup of coffee. "Half the department wants to take you to lunch to hear how you charmed the Ice King. The other half is updating their resumes, convinced you're going to clean house when you take over security." Maya accepted the coffee with a grateful smile. No one's losing their job, and there was no charming involved. Mr. Donovan recognized my technical expertise, that's all. Uh-huh. Raj's skeptical look made it clear he wasn't buying the purely professional explanation. His gaze dropped to her necklace. "That's new. Pretty." Maya's hand went automatically to the pendant. "Old, actually. I just haven't worn it in a while." "Well, it looks good. Distinctive." He tilted his head. "Looks almost like an antique." "It's just a family piece," Maya lied smoothly, the practiced deception coming easily after years of concealing her past. Nothing special. She spent the morning clearing her current projects and preparing transition documents for her team. By noon, her office was organized with military precision, files neatly labeled for whoever would take over her current responsibilities. At precisely one sign, a ripple of awareness passed through the open-plan office outside her door. Maya looked up to see Alexander Donovan standing in the department entrance, scanning the cubicles. Unlike his usual careful suits, today he wore dark jeans and a casual button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. The informal attire somehow made him more approachable while doing nothing to diminish his authority. When he spotted her office, he moved directly toward it, seemingly oblivious to the stares following his progress. Maya stood as he entered, conscious of the curious eyes watching through her glass walls. "I thought we might go somewhere less formal than La Maison," he said by way of greeting. "There's a cafe 2 blocks down with excellent sandwiches and private booths where we can talk." Maya nodded, grabbing her bag. "Lead the way." As they walked through the office, Alexander surprised her by acknowledging several employees by name, asking brief but specific questions about projects he apparently knew were underway. The interactions were brief but revealed a CEO far more in touch with ground-level operations than she'd imagined. "You know everyone's projects," she observed as they entered the elevator. "Not everyone's," he corrected, "but I make it a point to understand what each department is working on. It's still my company, even if the board thinks I'm just the public face these days." Outside, the spring day was unexpectedly warm, the kind that hinted at summer's approach. They walked side by side, an oddly companionable silence between them despite the power dynamics that should have made such ease impossible. "You're wearing something different today," Alexander observed as they waited at a crosswalk. For a moment, Maya thought he meant her more formal suit, until his gaze dropped specifically to her necklace. "It suits you." The personal observation caught her off guard. "Thank you," she said simply, resisting the urge to touch the pendant. The cafe he'd chosen was busy but not crowded, with high-backed booths that offered relative privacy. Once they were seated and had ordered, Alexander got directly to business. "I've drafted an outline of your responsibilities," he said, sliding a tablet across the table. "I'd like your input before it's finalized." Maya scanned the document, impressed despite herself by the comprehensive understanding of security architecture it displayed. "This is thorough. You've clearly thought this through." "I've been planning this position for months," he admitted. "Finding the right person was the challenge." Maya looked up sharply. "Months? Before you even met me?" Alexander had the grace to look slightly abashed. I came across your file during a routine security review 4 months ago. Your background, what's visible of it anyway, caught my attention. I've been watching your work since then. That's... Maya searched for the right word. Unsettling. I prefer thorough. His smile held a hint of self-deprecation. I don't make major organizational changes on a whim, Maya. Their sandwiches arrived, providing a momentary distraction from the revelation that she'd been under observation long before their first meeting. Maya took a bite, using the time to gather her thoughts. So the computer failure yesterday, was that orchestrated too? She kept her voice neutral, though the question was anything but. Alexander looked genuinely offended. Absolutely not. I would never compromise company operations for a personal agenda. He set down his sandwich. The failure was genuine. Your response was exactly what I'd hoped for, but I didn't engineer the situation. Maya studied his face, weighing his sincerity. Finally, she nodded. All right, I believe you. Relief flickered across his features. Good. Trust is essential for this position. Trust works both ways, Maya pointed out. You've been investigating me for months. Meanwhile, I know almost nothing about you beyond what's in press releases. Alexander considered this, then nodded. Fair point. What would you like to know? The direct offer surprised her. Why technology? You could have gone into any field with your resources. Because technology is the only thing that ever made sense to me. His answer came without hesitation. My father was old money, very traditional. Expected me to go into finance or law, but I built my first computer at 9 and hacked the school's grading system at 12. A smile touched his lips at the memory. I was trying to change my younger sister's failing science grade. Got caught, of course. Of course, Maya echoed, finding herself unexpectedly charmed by the image of a young Alexander using his skills for such an ordinary purpose. My father was furious, called it criminal behavior. His expression darkened momentarily. But I'd discovered something I was genuinely good at, something that felt like speaking a native language. I never looked back. And your family? My father disowned me when I dropped out of Harvard to start my first tech company. Alexander's tone was matter-of-fact, without self-pity. He died 2 years ago, still convinced I'd made the wrong choice. My mother followed 6 months later, heart attack, though I sometimes think it was just the end result of 40 years married to my father. He took a sip of water. My sister's the only family I have left. She lives in Europe, runs an art gallery. We talk every Sunday. The personal history, delivered without drama or apparent calculation, humanized him in a way Maya hadn't expected. I'm sorry about your parents. Alexander shrugged. Ancient history. Now your turn. Tell me something real, something not in any file. Maya hesitated, then decided on a truth that was personal but not dangerous. I was engaged once. It ended badly. How badly? He disappeared. The words felt strange to say aloud after years of silence. The official story was that he'd stolen classified technology and fled the country. I never believed it. Alexander's expression sharpened with interest. What did you believe? Maya touched her necklace unconsciously, that he was silenced because he knew something someone wanted to keep hidden. She met Alexander's eyes directly. 3 weeks later, I resigned my position, changed my name, and disappeared too. Less dramatically, but just as completely. Understanding dawned in his eyes. That's why you've been hiding. You think whatever happened to him could happen to you. I know it could. Maya's voice was quiet, but firm. And now that you've put me in a high-profile position, it probably will. The statement hung between them, stark and challenging. Alexander leaned forward, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. What exactly are you afraid of, Maya? Who are you hiding from? For a moment, she was tempted to tell him everything about the security system she'd designed that had proven too effective. about the shadow government program that had weaponized her creation, about the evidence James had found and the warning he'd given her the night before he vanished. Instead, she said simply, "People with power who don't want certain questions asked." Alexander studied her, clearly recognizing there was much more she wasn't saying. To her surprise, he didn't push further. "Whatever it is," he said finally, "I can help. Horizon has resources, connections, security that goes beyond typical corporate measures." "You can't fight what you can't see," Maya replied, "and you have no idea what you'd be facing. So, help me understand." He reached across the table, his hand covering hers in a gesture that seemed more instinctive than calculated. "Let me help you." The warmth of his touch, the intensity of his gaze, the unexpected offer of alliance, all of it combined to create a moment of connection that caught Maya completely off guard. For 3 years, she'd carried her secrets alone, trusting no one, allowing no one close enough to see past her careful facade. Now, looking into Alexander's eyes, she felt a dangerous urge to trust him, to share the burden she'd carried for so long. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. He glanced at the screen and grimaced. "Board chairman, I need to take this." He rose, stepping away from the table for privacy. Maya watched him go, aware that she'd come dangerously close to revealing secrets that could put them both at risk. As she waited, her gaze drifted to the cafe window and froze. Across the street, partially obscured by a delivery truck, stood the same man she'd noticed yesterday. This time there was no newspaper to hide behind, and Maya caught a clear glimpse of his face, a face she recognized from her previous life. When Alexander returned to the table, he found her white-knuckled grip on her water glass and her gaze fixed on the now empty street corner. "Maya, what's wrong?" She turned to him, her decision made. "I need to tell you everything, but not here, and not now." Alexander's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a residential high-rise that overlooked the city park. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views in all directions, while a sophisticated security system, far beyond standard luxury apartment measures, provided multiple layers of protection. Maya noted the biometric access points, the electromagnetic shielding, and the signal jammers with professional appreciation as they entered. "You weren't exaggerating about your security," she observed, watching Alexander disable a series of alerts on a hidden panel. "After my second round of venture funding, I had 3 break-in attempts in 2 months," he explained, leading her into a spacious living area dominated by modern furniture in shades of gray and blue. "Industrial espionage is an occupational hazard in my field. In mine, too." Maya moved to the windows, scanning the buildings across the park. The height and positioning of the penthouse made surveillance from external vantage points nearly impossible. Another strategic advantage she suspected wasn't accidental. "Wine?" Alexander offered. "Or something stronger? I have a feeling we might need it." "Water is fine." Maya needed absolute clarity for the conversation ahead. "I don't share classified information while impaired." A slight smile touched his lips. "Still classified even though you no longer work for the government?" "Some secrets don't expire with employment contracts." She took the water he offered and settled onto one of the sleek couches, gathering her thoughts. "What I'm about to tell you could put you at risk simply by knowing it. Are you sure you want that responsibility?" Alexander sat across from her, his expression completely serious. "I'm sure." Maya nodded, then began. 6 years ago, I was recruited to a special DoD project codenamed Sentinel. The official mission was to develop next-generation security systems for classified information, systems that could predict and neutralize threats before breaches occurred. "Predictive security," Alexander said, his interest clearly piqued. "How far did you get?" "Farther than anyone expected." Maya stared into her water glass, remembering the initial excitement of the project. We created an AI-driven system that could not only detect potential security threats but predict them with 97% accuracy based on behavioral patterns, communication analysis, and thousands of other data points. Alexander seemed momentarily at a loss for words. That's decades ahead of current commercial technology. It was decades ahead of what was supposed to be possible, Maya agreed, which is why certain elements within the government decided to expand its application beyond information security. They weaponized it, Alexander said quietly. Not a question, but a certainty. Maya nodded. They called it Oracle, a system designed to identify not just digital threats, but human ones, potential terrorists, foreign agents, even domestic dissidents, anyone deemed a threat to national security, all identified before they'd committed any act based purely on the system's predictions. Minority Report in real life, Alexander murmured, referencing the science fiction film about pre-crime prediction. Exactly, and just as ethically problematic. Maya's hand went to her necklace, drawing strength from it. I refused to work on the military applications. My fiancé, James, was less vocal in his objections, but equally concerned. He stayed on the project, hoping to guide it toward more ethical implementations. Alexander leaned forward. What happened? James discovered that Oracle was being used to identify and neutralize targets without any judicial oversight. People who had committed no crimes were disappearing, labeled as national security threats based solely on algorithmic predictions. Maya's voice remained steady, but her knuckles whitened around her glass. The program had gone completely dark, operating outside any legal framework. And he had evidence? He collected data for months, disappearances, operational details, the names of those involved. 3 years ago, he told me he'd compiled enough to expose the program. The next day, he disappeared. Maya set down her glass carefully. His official file says he stole classified technology and defected to a foreign government. I know that's a lie. Because of the necklace, Alexander said unexpectedly, his gaze focusing on the pendant at her throat. Maya looked up in surprise. How did you know? You touch it when you speak about him. And it's not the kind of jewelry you'd choose for yourself. Too ornate for someone who values functionality. His observation was astute. He gave it to you. The night before he disappeared. Maya's fingers curled around the small golden key. It's not just jewelry. James was brilliant with encryption. He built a key within a key. She twisted the pendant, and the tiny blue stone clicked, revealing a minuscule USB connection. Everything he discovered is encrypted on this, his insurance policy, in case something happened to him. Alexander's eyes widened slightly. You've been wearing evidence against a black government program around your neck for 3 years? Not until yesterday. Maya's expression was grim. I kept it hidden. It's useless without the decryption sequence anyway, a sequence James was supposed to give me the next day. So you've never accessed the data? I've tried. For months after he disappeared, I attempted every encryption method I knew, every personal reference that might be the key. Nothing worked. The frustration of those failed attempts still haunted her. Eventually, I realized that continuing to try might expose me. So I hid the necklace and myself. New name, new city, deliberately mid-level job that wouldn't attract attention. Alexander was silent for a moment, processing. And now someone's found you. Yes. Maya stood, too restless to remain seated. The man I saw yesterday and today, his name is Marcus Pierce. He was oversight on the Sentinel project, supposedly ensuring compliance with legal parameters. In reality, he was steering us toward military applications from the beginning. If he's found you, why hasn't he moved against you yet? I don't know. Maya paced near the windows, tension visible in every line of her body. Maybe he's not sure I have evidence. Maybe he's waiting to see if I lead him to other former team members, or maybe he's just toying with me. Alexander stood and moved to her side, close enough that she could feel his presence, but not quite touching. "What do you need?" he asked simply. The direct question caught Maya off guard. She'd expected skepticism, perhaps even fear upon hearing her story. Instead, Alexander was offering support without reservation. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've been running and hiding for so long I never planned for what would happen if they found me." "Then it's time to stop running." His voice was calm but held absolute conviction. "Horizon has resources, legal teams, private security, connections in both media and government. Whatever you need to protect yourself and expose what happened to James, it's yours." Maya turned to face him fully. "Why? Why would you risk your company, your reputation, yourself, for someone you barely know?" Alexander's gaze was steady, his answer immediate. "Because what you've described is fundamentally wrong. Because your fiancé was killed for trying to expose it. And because—" He hesitated, then continued more softly, "because in the short time I've known you, I've come to care what happens to you." The simple honesty of the statement, delivered without dramatic flourish or obvious manipulation, caught Maya completely off guard. For 3 years she'd been alone with her secrets, her grief, her constant vigilance. The sudden offer of alliance, of genuine care, was almost too much to process. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "Say you'll let me help." Alexander reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. 2 heads are better than 1, especially when both of those heads are exceptionally intelligent. Despite everything, Maya found herself smiling at his understated confidence. "Modest, aren't you?" "Not particularly." His answering smile transformed his usually serious face. "But then, neither should you be. Together, we might actually stand a chance against whatever you're facing." The moment stretched between them, charged with something more than professional alliance. Maya became acutely aware of his hand still holding hers, of the way his eyes held not just determination but something warmer, more personal. Before she could respond, a sharp electronic tone broke the silence. Alexander frowned, releasing her hand to move swiftly to a security panel near the kitchen. "What is it?" Maya asked, instantly alert. "Perimeter breach on the private elevator." His fingers flew across the panel, bringing up camera feeds. "Someone's overridden the security protocols." Maya joined him at the panel, watching as the camera showed the elevator ascending toward the penthouse. "That shouldn't be possible with the systems you have in place." "It shouldn't," Alexander agreed grimly, "unless they have government-level resources." Their eyes met in shared understanding. "Pierce," Maya whispered. Alexander moved quickly to a seemingly ordinary bookshelf, pressing a hidden mechanism that caused a section to slide away, revealing a concealed safe. He entered a code and retrieved a handgun, checking it with practiced efficiency that suggested more familiarity with weapons than Maya would have expected from a tech CEO. "There's a secure room behind my office," he said, nodding toward a hallway. "Panic room with independent communications and air supply. Go." Maya stood her ground. "I'm not hiding while you confront them." "This isn't a debate, Maya." His voice was firm. "If they're here for you, my best chance of protecting you is if they don't know you're here. And if they're here for you?" The elevator indicator showed it was now just 3 floors below the penthouse. "Then I'll handle it." Alexander's expression was impossible to read. "I have my own resources." "Alexander—" "Please, Maya." Something in his tone, not command but genuine concern, swayed her. "I can't focus on handling this if I'm worried about your safety." She hesitated, then nodded, following his directions to the concealed room. As the hidden door closed behind her, Maya found herself in a compact but well-equipped space with monitors showing feeds from throughout the penthouse. She watched as Alexander positioned himself strategically, gun held low but ready, as the elevator reached the penthouse level. The doors slid open to reveal not Marcus Pierce, but a tall, elegant woman in her early 30s. She stepped out confidently, apparently unconcerned by the security breach she'd just engineered. "Really, Alex?" The woman's voice came clearly through the room's audio feed. "A gun? Is that any way to greet your sister?" Maya watched Alexander's posture change instantly from defensive readiness to shocked recognition. "Sophia?" He lowered the weapon. "What the hell are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Milan." Change of plans. Sophia Donovan moved into the penthouse with casual familiarity. "We need to talk about your new chief security architect and the very dangerous people who are looking for her." In the hidden room, Maya froze, her attention riveted to the monitor. How did Alexander's sister know about her? And more importantly, how did she know about the people hunting her? "I don't know what you're talking about," Alexander was saying, his voice carefully neutral. Sophia gave him a look of exasperated affection. "Of course you do. Maya Jackson, formerly Dr. Amara Jenkins of Project Sentinel." She set down her designer handbag and fixed her brother with a serious stare. "The question is whether you know what you've gotten yourself into by bringing her into your life." As Maya watched the exchange with mounting tension, a notification appeared on one of the secondary monitors, an alert from the building's external security system. She switched the feed to show the street below, where 3 black SUVs had just pulled up, disgorging men in tactical gear who moved with military precision toward the building's entrance. "Alexander," she whispered, knowing he couldn't hear her through the one-way system. "We have bigger problems than your sister." Maya's fingers flew across the control panel in the panic room, searching for a way to alert Alexander to the approaching threat. Finding an intercom system, she pressed the activation button. "Alexander, there's a tactical team entering the building. At least 6 men, military precision, heading for the main entrance." On the monitor, she saw him stiffen at the sound of her voice, while Sophia showed no surprise at all. "See?" Sophia said with grim satisfaction. "They're already here." Alexander moved swiftly to his security panel, bringing up the external camera feeds. "Maya, stay where you are." His voice was calm but commanding. "Sophia, explain how you know about any of this. Now." Sophia crossed to the security panel, studying the approaching team with professional assessment rather than fear. "I work for Interpol's Cyber Intelligence Division, have for the past 5 years. You run an art gallery in Milan," Alexander said flatly. "That's my cover." Sophia's expression was unapologetic. "The gallery is real, but it's not my primary occupation." Maya watched the exchange with growing alarm. The tactical team had cleared building security with remarkable ease, suggesting official credentials or exceptional skill. They would reach the penthouse within minutes. "Alexander," she called through the intercom, "we need to leave. These men won't stop for private security or legal niceties." He nodded. Decision made. "Sophia, is there an extraction plan?" 2 blocks north. Blue sedan with diplomatic plates." Sophia was already gathering her bag. "But we'll need a diversion to reach it. They've got the main entrance covered, and they'll be securing the parking garage right now." Maya's mind raced through possibilities. The service elevator. Most buildings this size have separate service access for maintenance and deliveries. Alexander nodded. "East side of the building, but we'd need to get down 50 floors without being detected." "I can help with that." Maya's fingers moved rapidly across the control panel, accessing building systems. "If I can trigger fire alarms on multiple floors, it would create confusion, force evacuation protocols." "Do it," Alexander said, moving to a cabinet where he retrieved a small go bag, clearly prepared for emergency departures. "Sophia, how many are watching the service areas?" 2, maybe 3. The rest will come directly here." Maya triggered the alarm, sending the building into immediate evacuation mode. Sirens wailed throughout the structure, and on the security feeds, she could see residents beginning to pour into hallways and emergency stairwells. "I'm coming out," she said into the intercom. The hidden door slid open, and Maya stepped back into the main living area just as pounding began at the penthouse's main entrance. The reinforced security door would hold temporarily, but not indefinitely, against determined attackers. "This way," Alexander said, leading them toward a hallway hidden behind the kitchen area. "Service access connects here for deliveries." The narrow service corridor felt claustrophobic after the spacious penthouse. They moved quickly, Alexander taking point with his weapon ready, Sophia in the middle, Maya bringing up the rear. The old instincts from her DoD training returned instantly. Move silently, check corners, maintain awareness of exit routes. "You seem very calm for a tech CEO in a crisis," Maya observed quietly as they reached the service elevator. "I wasn't always a tech CEO." Alexander's response was terse, his attention focused on the elevator controls. "The fire alarm has locked down regular elevator operation. We need to override." Maya stepped forward. "I've got it." Her fingers made short work of the security panel, bypassing the emergency protocols. Benefits of writing similar systems. The elevator doors slid open. As they stepped inside, a crash echoed from the direction of the penthouse, the security door giving way. "They're in," Sophia said unnecessarily. Alexander pressed the button for the basement level and the elevator began its descent. "How did they find us so quickly?" "They weren't looking for you," Sophia explained, her voice low. "They've been tracking Maya since she accepted the promotion. The announcement put her back on their radar after 3 years of searching." Maya felt a chill at the confirmation that her fears had been justified. "How do you know all this?" "Because Interpol has been investigating Project Oracle for 18 months, Sophia replied. "We've documented 27 disappearances of people labeled as potential threats by the system, all without due process, all justified under national security directives that were never legally authorized." "And you knew I was connected to it?" "Your name was in the files as the original architect of Sentinel, before it became Oracle." Sophia's eyes held a mix of respect and wariness. "What we didn't know was where you disappeared to until my brother conveniently announced your promotion to the world." Alexander looked between them, processing this new information as the elevator continued its rapid descent. If Interpol is investigating, why not bring in official channels? Why the cloak and dagger extraction? "Because Oracle has infiltrated multiple intelligence agencies," Sophia explained grimly. "We don't know who we can trust, and the people running it have significant political protection." The elevator slowed as they approached the basement level. Alexander readied his weapon. "Stay behind me," he instructed. The doors opened to a dimly lit service area. Alexander scanned for threats, then gestured them forward. They moved silently through storage areas and maintenance rooms, following service corridors that wound through the building's substructure. They were nearing an exit when voices ahead made them freeze. 2 men in tactical gear were visible through a partially open door, monitoring the service exit. "Alternative?" Alexander whispered. Maya examined their surroundings, noting a maintenance ladder that led to a utility tunnel. "There," she pointed. "Most luxury high-rises connect to underground service tunnels for utilities and emergency access." They moved silently to the ladder. Alexander went first to secure the area below, followed by Sophia with Maya descending last. The utility tunnel was narrow but tall enough to stand in, concrete walls lined with pipes and electrical conduits. "Which way?" Sophia asked. Maya oriented herself, visualizing the building schematics she'd studied from Alexander's security system. "North. That would take us beyond their perimeter, assuming they've surrounded the building." They moved quickly through the dimly lit tunnel, the distant wail of fire alarms still audible. After several minutes of silent progress, they reached a junction with maintenance access leading up to street level. "This should put us about 1.5 blocks from your extraction point," Maya said. Alexander climbed the access ladder first, carefully pushing open the service hatch to check for threats. After confirming the area was clear, he helped both women up to what turned out to be an unremarkable side street. "Move normally," Sophia instructed as they emerged. "No running. We're just 3 people evacuated from the building due to the fire alarm." They walked at a deliberately casual pace, Alexander between the two women, his hand never far from the concealed weapon. Maya was acutely aware of the necklace against her skin, the weight of the secrets it contained suddenly heavier than ever. "The blue sedan should be just around this corner," Sophia said as they approached the end of the block. As they turned, Maya spotted it immediately, a dark blue diplomatic vehicle idling at the curb. But her trained eye also caught the black SUV parked half a block behind it, its windows tinted but engine running. "We have company," she murmured, nodding slightly toward the SUV. "Behind your extraction vehicle." Sophia didn't turn to look. "Are you sure?" "Engines running, tactical position. Same model as the vehicles I saw approaching Alexander's building." Maya's assessment was automatic. "They're waiting for us." Alexander's expression hardened. "Is your extraction team compromised?" "I don't know," Sophia admitted. "My handler arranged the vehicle. If they've been intercepted?" "We need to change plans," Maya decided. "There's a subway entrance 2 blocks east. Public, crowded, multiple exit points." Without waiting for agreement, she adjusted their course, guiding them away from the diplomatic vehicle and toward the busier commercial street where the subway entrance was located. Alexander followed her lead without question, his hand at the small of her back in a gesture that was both protective and surprisingly intimate. "They're moving," Sophia warned quietly, having risked a glance back. "2 men from the SUV on foot." "Don't react," Maya instructed. "We're almost to the main street." They reached the bustling avenue, immediately blending into the crowd of pedestrians. Maya led them confidently toward the subway entrance, moving at a pace calculated to be purposeful without drawing attention. "When we get inside, we split up," she said. "Basic counter-surveillance. Sophia, take the uptown platform. Alexander and I will go downtown. If they follow Sophia, she can handle herself. If they follow us, there are 2 of us. We regroup at the safe house." "What safe house?" Alexander asked. "Mine." Maya met his eyes briefly. "I have a backup location, off-grid, purchased through layers of shells and trusts. Even James didn't know about it." They descended into the subway station, moving smoothly through the turnstiles. At the platform junction, Sophia gave them a brief nod before heading toward the uptown trains, while Maya led Alexander toward the downtown platform. "You have a safe house," Alexander repeated as they positioned themselves among the waiting passengers. "Just how long have you been preparing for this scenario?" "Since the day James disappeared." Maya kept her voice low, maintaining situational awareness as she spoke. "I may have been hiding, but I was never unprepared." The rumble of an approaching train filled the station. As passengers began to position themselves for boarding, Maya caught sight of a familiar face entering the platform area, Marcus Pierce, scanning the crowd with methodical precision. "Don't turn around," she instructed Alexander, turning her body to shield her face from Pierce's view. "But we've been followed." The train doors opened. Maya and Alexander stepped aboard, positioning themselves by a different door than the one they'd entered through. As the warning chime sounded for closing doors, Maya saw Pierce spot them, his expression hardening as he began to push through the crowd. "He's coming," she warned. Alexander positioned himself protectively beside her as Pierce reached the train just as the doors began to close. For a moment, it seemed he wouldn't make it. Then a hand thrust between the closing doors, forcing them to reopen. Pierce stepped into their car, his cold eyes finding Maya immediately. But before he could move toward them, Alexander made an unexpected decision. He pulled the emergency exit handle at the back of the car, forcing the rear doors open between stations. "Jump!" he commanded, taking Maya's hand. They leapt from the slow-moving train into the darkness of the tunnel, landing with practiced precision that spoke of training beyond corporate leadership. Behind them, shouting erupted as Pierce tried to follow, but the train was already accelerating again, carrying him past the point where they'd exited. "This way," Alexander said, leading her along a narrow maintenance walkway that ran alongside the tracks. "There's an emergency exit every few hundred yards in these tunnels." How do you know that? Maya asked as they moved swiftly through the dimly lit passageway. Like I said, he replied, a grim smile visible in the low light. I wasn't always a tech CEO. They reached an emergency exit door within minutes, using it to access a maintenance stairwell that led back to street level. Emerging in an alley several blocks from where they'd entered the subway, Alexander checked their surroundings before speaking again. Where's this safe house of yours? Maya hesitated only briefly before making a decision to trust him completely. Brooklyn, Industrial District. We'll need transportation that can't be traced. Alexander nodded, pulling out a phone different from his usual device. I have resources for that. He made a brief call, speaking in what sounded like code. Transportation will meet us 6 blocks north, 15 minutes. As they walked, maintaining awareness of their surroundings, Maya finally asked the question that had been nagging at her. Your sister is Interpol, and you clearly have training beyond what most tech entrepreneurs receive. Who are you, really, Alexander? He glanced at her, something unreadable in his expression. Someone who understands your situation better than you might think. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Before I founded Horizon, I worked for an agency that doesn't officially exist. Let's just say I know exactly what government overreach looks like from the inside. The revelation should have shocked her, but somehow it made perfect sense. The security knowledge, the tactical awareness, the weapon handling, all suggested training beyond civilian experience. Is that why you were so quick to believe me? About Oracle? Alexander nodded. I've seen programs like it before. Different names, same disregard for civil liberties in the name of national security. His hand found hers in the gathering dusk. And it's why I'm not afraid to help you fight this. I've done it before. Maya looked at their joined hands, then at his face, determined, confident, and somehow trustworthy despite the layers of revelation and complication. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something beyond her perpetual vigilance and isolation. She felt hope. Then let's get to the safe house, she said, because I think it's time we find out exactly what's on this necklace. The safe house was nothing like Alexander had expected. From the outside, it appeared to be just another nondescript warehouse in Brooklyn's industrial district, its brick facade weathered and unremarkable among dozens of similar structures. But as Maya unlocked a series of sophisticated security measures disguised as ordinary padlocks, Alexander recognized the work of someone who understood true security went beyond obvious fortifications. Multiple entry points, he observed quietly as she led him through a carefully concealed side door rather than the main entrance. Misdirection built into the design. Maya nodded, impressed by his assessment. The main entrance is a decoy. Anyone breaking in that way triggers silent alarms and encounters a perfectly ordinary storage space leased to a non-existent import company. Inside, the warehouse revealed its secrets. While the outer perimeter remained industrial and dusty for appearance's sake, the interior contained a self-contained living space, sparse but functional, with advanced technology that contrasted with the deliberately aged surroundings. Solar power with battery backup, Maya explained, activating systems as they moved deeper into the space. Water filtration. Satellite internet bounced through 17 proxy servers and enough supplies to last 3 months. She gestured to a wall of equipment. And a complete tech lab, off-grid and electromagnetically shielded. Alexander surveyed the space with professional appreciation. You built all this while working a regular corporate job? I built it slowly, over 3 years, using cash and multiple identities. Maya's expression was somber. When you've seen someone you love disappear without a trace, you become serious about contingency planning. She moved to a communication station, checking for any messages from Sophia. Your sister should have contacted us by now. Sophia operates on her own timetable, Alexander said, though Maya detected concern beneath his calm exterior. She has protocols for situations like this. If she can reach us safely, she will. Maya nodded, accepting his assessment. She crossed to a workbench equipped with specialized tools and multiple computer systems. "We should try to access the necklace while we have the chance. If they tracked us to your penthouse, they'll be searching systematically now." Alexander joined her at the workbench. "What have you already tried to break the encryption?" "Everything conventional." Maya carefully removed the necklace, laying it on a specialized scanning pad. Standard cryptographic approaches, personal references, birthdays, meaningful locations. James was too smart for anything obvious. The tiny pendant gleamed under the directed light. Maya activated the hidden mechanism, revealing the miniature USB connection nestled within the golden key. "The interface is custom," she explained, connecting it to a specialized reader. "James built it himself. It's not just storage, it's a complete security system in miniature. Try to force it, and it wipes itself instantly." Alexander studied the pendant with new respect. "Your fiancé was no ordinary engineer. He specialized in physical security systems before joining Sentinel." Pride and pain mingled in Maya's voice. He believed the best security merged digital and physical elements in ways most hackers wouldn't anticipate. She began running diagnostics on the device, checking what she could without triggering security protocols. Alexander watched her work, studying her profile with undisguised admiration. "You've never stopped looking for answers," he observed quietly. Maya's hands paused briefly over the keyboard. "How could I? James gave his life to expose Oracle. I owe it to him to finish what he started." "Is that the only reason?" She met his gaze directly. "No. I helped create the foundation of a system that's been weaponized against innocent people. That makes me responsible even if I walked away before the military applications." Alexander nodded, understanding the weight of such responsibility. "What are you seeing?" "The encryption is quantum resistant. Multiple authentication factors required." Maya frowned at the readings. "And there's something else. A countdown sequence embedded in the security protocol. 3 attempts before permanent lockout." "You've tried twice already?" "Just once, right after he disappeared." Maya pointed to a status indicator. "1 attempt remaining." The gravity of the situation settled between them. One chance to access information that might explain James's disappearance and expose Oracle's operations. Information people were clearly willing to kill for. "Tell me about James," Alexander said unexpectedly. "What kind of man designed security this sophisticated for his fiancée?" Maya's expression softened slightly. "Brilliant. Principled. He believed technology should protect people, not control them." Her fingers absently traced the outline of the pendant. "He used to say that the most dangerous weapon wasn't a gun or a bomb, but an algorithm that stripped away human judgment." "He sounds like someone I would have respected," Alexander said quietly. "You would have argued constantly," Maya replied with a small smile. "He was idealistic. You're pragmatic. Like you. I'm somewhere in between." She turned back to the systems. "That's why Sentinel worked initially. James dreamed of what could be, I built what was possible, and we met in the middle." Alexander watched her work for several moments. "What if the key isn't a what, but a when?" Maya looked up. "What do you mean?" "You said you tried birthdays, anniversaries, static dates from the past. But what if James was thinking about the future? A date that hadn't happened yet when he gave you the necklace?" Understanding dawned in Maya's eyes. "Like our wedding date. When were you supposed to get married?" "August 17th, 3 months after he disappeared." Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "It's a long shot." "Worth the 1 attempt we have." Maya nodded, entering the date in various formats. Nothing happened. She tried combinations with their names, with locations, still nothing. Frustration crept into her expression. "It has to be something he was certain I would remember, something tied to us specifically." Alexander studied the pendant again. "The blue stone? Did it have significance?" It matched the color of the lake where he proposed. As she said it, Maya's eyes widened. The coordinates of the lake, plus our wedding date. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, combining the geographic coordinates with the numeric date. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered and lines of decryption code began flowing. "You did it," Alexander said, genuine admiration in his voice. "We did it," Maya corrected, watching as the security protocols disengaged one by one. "I wouldn't have thought of combining location and date without your suggestion." The final encryption barrier fell away, revealing a database of files meticulously organized and labeled. Maya navigated through them quickly, looking for anything that might explain why James had been targeted. "Here," she said, opening a folder labeled Oracle Targets. "This is what got him killed." The file contained hundreds of names, individuals identified by the system as potential threats. But as Maya scanned the list, confusion creased her brow. "This doesn't make sense. These people aren't terrorists or spies." She pointed to various entries. University professors, journalists, civil rights attorneys, technology researchers. Alexander leaned closer, studying the list. Not threats to national security, threats to Oracle itself. People who might expose or oppose the program if they knew about it, Maya said, the realization hitting her. Oracle wasn't just identifying external threats, it was protecting itself by targeting those who might shut it down. She opened another file, this one containing operational details. They called it preemptive neutralization. Most of these people weren't even aware of Oracle's existence, but the algorithm predicted they would oppose it if they learned about it. "A self-perpetuating system eliminating potential opposition before it forms," Alexander said grimly. "The perfect authoritarian tool." Maya continued searching, opening a file labeled Architecture. "This is the current deployment information. Oracle has been integrated into surveillance systems across multiple agencies, DHS, FBI, even local law enforcement in major cities. It's gone way beyond a classified DoD program," Alexander observed. "This is systemic and expanding." Maya pointed to implementation dates for additional integrations. "They're planning to connect it to public surveillance networks next month. Traffic cameras, security systems, commercial facial recognition, which would give it nearly unlimited monitoring capability." Maya nodded, her expression grim. James discovered all this before anyone else realized how far it had spread. She opened another file, marked simply Proof. The file contained video files, internal memos, operation records, undeniable evidence of Oracle's expansion and the neutralization operations carried out against its targets. Names, dates, locations of people who had been detained without charges, who had disappeared, who had died in convenient accidents. "This is what they're afraid of," Alexander said quietly. "Concrete proof of domestic operations against American citizens, all without warrants or due process. And the authorization signatures on these operations go all the way up to the National Security Council." Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "James wasn't just killed by rogue agents. This is official policy, approved at the highest levels." As they processed the magnitude of what they'd discovered, Maya's security system emitted a soft alert. She moved quickly to the surveillance monitors, checking the perimeter cameras. "Someone's here," she said, tension returning to her voice. "Northeast corner, moving along the perimeter." Alexander joined her at the monitors, studying the figure with professional assessment. Just one person, not tactical gear, not Pierce or his team. The figure moved cautiously but purposefully, avoiding the main entrance and heading directly for the concealed side door they had used. As they came into clearer view, Alexander relaxed slightly. "It's Sophia." Maya checked the biometric readings from the perimeter sensors. "She's alone?" "Appears to be." He studied the movements again. "That's her extraction protocol. Direct approach, no concealment tactics." If she'd been compromised, she would use different movement patterns to signal danger. Maya activated the intercom. "Identify yourself with the phrase I gave Alexander." Through the speaker came Sophia's clear voice. "The raven flies at midnight, though I think that's ridiculously melodramatic." Despite everything, Maya smiled slightly as she began unlocking the security systems. Alexander raised an eyebrow at her. "The raven flies at midnight? Really?" "I never claimed to be creative with code phrases." Maya completed the unlocking sequence, allowing Sophia entry through the concealed door. Sophia entered quickly, looking remarkably composed for someone who had just evaded government operatives. Only a slight disarray in her usually perfect hair suggested she'd been through any ordeal at all. "Nice place," she commented, surveying the warehouse. "Very apocalypse chic." "What happened after we separated?" Alexander asked, getting straight to business. "Pierce had men on both platforms. I lost mine in the crowd, doubled back through emergency exits." Sophia's expression grew more serious. "They're coordinating with local law enforcement now, describing you both as fugitives wanted for espionage and theft of classified information." Maya tensed. "How widespread is the alert?" "Currently contained to federal agencies and NYPD, but they'll expand it if necessary." Sophia moved to the workbench, noticing the connected necklace and active displays. "You got it open." "Yes," Maya confirmed. "And it's worse than we thought. Oracle isn't just targeting potential terrorists. It's eliminating anyone who might oppose or expose its existence. Academics, journalists, civil liberties advocates. And it's about to be integrated with public surveillance networks nationwide," Alexander added. Sophia absorbed this with professional calm. "That matches what we've pieced together at Interpol, but we've lacked concrete evidence." She gestured to the displays. "This could be enough to force an international inquiry." "If we can get it to the right people before Pierce finds us," Maya said. "That's why I'm here." Sophia pulled an encrypted phone from her pocket. "My handler has arranged secure transport to a diplomatic facility where you can both receive protection while we process the evidence." Alexander and Maya exchanged a look, having the same thought simultaneously. "Who's your handler, Sophia?" Alexander asked carefully. "Deputy Director Wellman, Cyber Division. He's been overseeing the Oracle investigation from the beginning." Maya's blood ran cold as she quickly turned to the workstation, pulling up the Oracle files again. She navigated to the Operational Authorities document, scrolling rapidly until she found what she feared. "Wellman Thomas J.," she read aloud, "Deputy Liaison to Oracle Implementation, appointed 3 years ago by the National Security Council." Sophia's composure faltered for the first time. "That's not possible. He recruited me specifically to investigate Oracle." "Or to track who was investigating it," Alexander said grimly, moving to check the perimeter monitors again. "How did you contact him after we separated?" "Secure channel, encrypted." Sophia stopped, realization dawning. "That would tell him exactly where I am." "And who you're with," Maya confirmed, already moving to activate emergency protocols. "How long ago?" 20 minutes. Sophia's expression hardened with anger and betrayal. "We need to move. Now." Maya quickly copied the Oracle files to multiple secure drives as Alexander gathered essential supplies. "There's a secondary exit," she explained. "Leads to the water. I have a boat docked there." "Where can we go?" Sophia asked. "If Wellman is involved, Interpol's resources are compromised." "I know someone," Alexander said, surprising both women. "Someone outside official channels who specializes in exactly this kind of situation." Before either could question him further, the perimeter alarm sounded, a silent vibration through their secure communications devices rather than an audible alert that might give away their awareness. Maya checked the monitors, her heart sinking. Multiple vehicles approaching from all access points, tactical teams deploying. "Pierce?" Alexander asked, already moving toward the secondary exit. "And at least 20 others." Maya disconnected the necklace, securing it and the backup drives. They're setting up a full perimeter. We have minutes, at most. As they moved toward the escape route, Sophia's expression remained troubled. I led them right to you. I'm sorry. You were doing your job, Maya said simply, leading them through a concealed passage that sloped gently downward. We all misjudged who to trust. Not all of us, Alexander said quietly, his hand finding Maya's briefly in the dim passageway. Sometimes the right instincts are the ones we don't question. Maya felt the warmth of his touch, even as the sound of entry teams breaching the main warehouse echoed behind them. With the necklace secure against her throat once more, and the copied evidence in her possession, she led them toward the water and their next uncertain destination. Behind them, Pierce and his team would find an empty safe house, its secrets evacuated along with its occupants. Ahead lay a confrontation that had been 3 years in the making, a chance to finally bring Oracle's architects to justice, or to join James and the others who had disappeared trying. The small powerboat cut through the dark waters of the East River, its navigation lights dimmed to reduce visibility. Maya stood at the helm, guiding the vessel with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed this escape route many times in preparation for exactly this scenario. Behind them, the Brooklyn shoreline receded, emergency lights visible around the warehouse district where Pierce and his teams were undoubtedly discovering their quarry had escaped. Alexander stood beside her, watchful and alert, while Sophia monitored a specialized communications device for any signs they were being tracked. Coast Guard will be alerted soon, Sophia warned. Standard protocol for fugitive pursuit near waterways. We're not heading into open water, Maya replied, adjusting their course. There's a private dock just past the bridge, unmarked, paid for with cash through a shell corporation. Alexander raised an eyebrow. You've thought of everything. Not everything, Maya corrected grimly. I never planned for a compromised Interpol agent in my escape scenario. Sophia winced slightly. I'm still processing the fact that Wellman is working with Oracle. He recruited me personally for the investigation, which gave him perfect visibility into Interpol's efforts, Alexander pointed out. He could track the investigation while ensuring it never found anything concrete. Until now. Maya patted the secure pouch where she'd stored the copied files. James's evidence changes everything, if we can get it to the right people. That's where my contact comes in. Alexander checked his specialized phone, the one he'd used to arrange their earlier transportation. She's agreed to meet us, but we'll need to move quickly. Her window of availability is limited. Who exactly is this contact? Sophia asked, professional skepticism evident in her tone. Someone I worked with in my previous life. She specializes in exposing government overreach while protecting the whistleblowers who provide the evidence. He met his sister's gaze directly. You've heard of her, though you don't know it. Cryptic, Sophia muttered. Very helpful. Maya guided the boat beneath a darkened section of riverfront where abandoned piers created shadowy channels between rotting wooden structures. She navigated with practiced precision until they reached a small, unremarkable dock nestled between two larger derelict piers. We're here, she announced, cutting the engine and letting momentum carry them the final distance. Alexander secured the boat while Maya gathered their essential equipment, the drives containing the Oracle evidence, basic supplies, and a small arsenal of specialized devices that looked more military than civilian in design. Expecting a war? Sophia asked, eyeing the equipment. Always preparing for worst-case scenarios, Maya replied. It's kept me alive for 3 years. They moved from the dock to an unmarked door set into what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse. Maya entered a complex series of codes into a disguised panel, and the door slid open to reveal a Spartan interior that served as another safe location, smaller than the Brooklyn warehouse but equally well-equipped. Transitional safe house, she explained as they entered. Temporary staging area only, 24 hours maximum before the automated systems wipe it clean. How many of these do you have? Alexander asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Enough. Maya's tone made it clear she wasn't ready to divulge all her security measures, even to him. Inside, they found basic amenities: food, first aid supplies, changes of clothing, and most importantly, secure communications equipment independent from traditional networks. Your contact, Maya said, turning to Alexander. How do we reach her? Alexander moved to the communication station. She'll contact us. I've already activated the beacon. While they waited, Maya transferred the Oracle files to the secure system, creating additional backups and arranging the most damning evidence for immediate access. Sophia, meanwhile, used her Interpol training to assess their tactical position and security vulnerabilities. Perimeter looks clean for now, she reported after checking the surveillance feeds. But Pierce has resources. If Wellman has alerted him to my involvement, they'll be checking all waterfront properties within a 10-mile radius. Which is why we won't be staying long, Alexander said, just as the secure communication system chimed with an incoming transmission. The screen flickered and a woman's face appeared, late 40s with steel-gray hair cut in a practical bob and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Maya recognized her immediately, though they had never met. Eleanor Vance, she said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. You know Eleanor Vance. Alexander nodded. From before she became the world's most effective government accountability journalist. On screen, Vance's expression remained professional but alert. Alexander, it's been a long time. I take it this isn't a social call. We have evidence of domestic operations against American citizens by a classified predictive security program, he said without preamble. Operations sanctioned at the highest levels of government, resulting in numerous disappearances and deaths. Project Oracle, Vance said with a nod, confirming she was already aware of at least parts of the program. I've heard whispers. Nothing concrete enough to publish. We have concrete evidence. Maya stepped forward. My name is Dr. Amara Jenkins, Vance finished for her. Lead architect on Project Sentinel before it became Oracle. Presumed dead or in foreign custody after your disappearance 3 years ago, along with your fiancé, James Collins. Maya stiffened. How do you know who you really are? Vance's expression softened slightly. I've been tracking Oracle-related disappearances for 2 years. Your case was one of the first that caught my attention. Brilliant young security expert suddenly vanishes after her fiancé is accused of espionage. Classic deflection tactics. Alexander placed a steadying hand on Maya's arm. Eleanor, we have the evidence James collected before he disappeared. Names, dates, authorization signatures, everything needed to expose Oracle and those behind it. And in return, you need protection and a platform, Vance concluded. I can provide both, but there are complications. The government has recently taken an increased interest in my activities. My communications are being monitored, my movements tracked. By Oracle, Sophia interjected. You're likely on their target list. Vance's gaze shifted to Sophia. Interpol Cyber Division, I presume? Yes, I suspected as much when my usual sources began going silent. The question is whether your presence helps or hinders our efforts. My handler is compromised, Sophia admitted, but my access codes and credentials still work. They don't know yet that I've gone rogue. Which gives us a narrow window of opportunity, Vance said, calculating. Here's what I propose. I have a secure facility in Upper New Hampshire, off-grid and unknown to anyone in government. Meet me there, and we'll prepare a coordinated release of the evidence through multiple international outlets simultaneously. How do we get there? Maya asked. Every law enforcement agency will be looking for us by now. I've arranged transportation, Alexander said. Private aircraft, pilot who owes me several favors. No flight plan, no questions. Maya looked at him with newfound appreciation for his resources and connections. When? Dawn, he replied. Small airfield in northern New Jersey. Vance nodded approval. I'll be at the New Hampshire location by the time you arrive. Bring the original evidence and all copies. We'll need to verify everything before publication. The call ended with arrangements for secure contact protocols during transit. As the screen went dark, Sophia turned to her brother with undisguised curiosity. Eleanor Vance, the journalist who exposed the Cambodian black sites and the European surveillance program. She studied him with new eyes. Just what kind of agency that doesn't officially exist did you work for, Alex? The kind that occasionally needed people like Eleanor to expose operations that had crossed ethical lines, he replied. Our relationship was complicated. I bet, Sophia murmured. Maya was repacking their equipment, focused fully on the mission ahead, when she felt Alexander's presence beside her. You recognized Vance immediately, he observed. Of course. She's broken some of the biggest government accountability stories of the past decade. Maya continued organizing the drives. James admired her work. He said if anything ever happened to him, Vance would be the person to contact. She paused, looking up at Alexander. He would have appreciated the irony that you already knew her. James sounds like someone with good instincts, Alexander said quietly. He was. Maya's fingers touched the necklace briefly. You would have liked each other. A moment of understanding passed between them, acknowledgement of the ghost that had brought them together, the man whose life and death had set these events in motion. We should rest while we can, Alexander suggested. Dawn isn't far off and we'll need to move quickly once we leave here. Maya nodded agreement, though the thought of rest seemed impossible with adrenaline still coursing through her system. They set up a rotation for monitoring the surveillance systems, with Sophia taking the first watch. In the small resting area, Maya found herself beside Alexander on a narrow cot, both of them too wired to sleep despite their exhaustion. When this is over, he said quietly, what will you do? The question caught her off guard. For 3 years, Maya had lived day to day, focused solely on survival and finding the truth about James's disappearance. The idea of a future beyond that mission was almost foreign. I don't know, she admitted. I've been Dr. Amara Jenkins in hiding for so long, I'm not sure who I'll be when I don't have to hide anymore. Whoever you choose to be, Alexander said simply. His hand found hers in the dimness, a warm anchor in the uncertainty surrounding them. That's the point of all this, isn't it? Freedom to choose without fear. Maya turned to face him, struck by the unpretentious wisdom in his words. In the low, emergency lighting, his features seemed softer. The corporate mask, and even the tactical precision momentarily set aside to reveal something more vulnerable and human. Why are you really helping me, Alexander? She asked, the question that had lingered since their first dinner. The truth, not the corporate answer or the tactical one. He was silent for a moment, considering his response. Because from the moment you walked into my office completely unimpressed by my position or power, I recognized something in you that I thought I'd lost in myself. His voice lowered. The absolute certainty that some principles are worth risking everything for. The honesty of his answer, stripped of calculation or charm, touched something in Maya that had been closed off since James disappeared. Without overthinking, she leaned forward and kissed him, a gesture at once grateful, questioning, and affirming. Alexander responded with gentle intensity, his hand coming up to cradle her face as though she were something precious and fragile, though they both knew she was neither. When they separated, a new understanding existed between them, not replacing what had been lost, but acknowledging what might be possible in the future they were fighting for. We should try to sleep, Maya said softly. We should, he agreed, though neither made any move to separate. They remained close, drawing comfort from each other's presence as the night deepened around their temporary sanctuary. Outside, Pierce and his teams would be systematically narrowing down their possible locations. The race to expose Oracle before it silenced them permanently was accelerating toward its climax. But for this brief moment in the quiet between crises, Maya allowed herself to feel something beyond fear and determination, a cautious hope that had been absent from her life for 3 long years. Dawn painted the sky in muted grays and pinks as they prepared to leave the transitional safe house. Maya methodically checked their equipment one final time, ensuring the precious drives containing the oracle evidence were secure. The necklace remained around her throat, its familiar weight both comfort and reminder of all that had brought her to this moment. "Perimeter is still clear," Sophia reported, returning from a final security sweep. But satellite imagery shows increased law enforcement activity throughout the 5 boroughs. They're setting up checkpoints on major routes out of the city. "Which is why we're not taking major routes," Alexander replied, studying a specialized map on his secure device. "Our transport is waiting at a private property 20 miles north. Old manufacturing plant with a maintenance airstrip that doesn't appear on FAA charts." "And we get there how?" Sophia asked practically. "Service tunnels connect to the subway maintenance system. We follow those to an exit point in the Bronx where we'll have ground transportation waiting." He looked to Maya. "Similar to how we escaped the penthouse." Maya nodded, impressed again by his preparation. "You've been planning escape routes from New York for some time." "Professional habit," Alexander said simply. "Always know your exits." They moved quickly, sealing the safe house behind them with protocols that would erase all evidence of their presence. The tunnels Alexander had identified were grimy and poorly lit, but they provided concealment from the increasingly comprehensive search undoubtedly underway above ground. After nearly an hour of careful progress through the labyrinthine passages, they reached an access point where a nondescript maintenance van awaited them. The driver, a weathered man in his 60s with military bearing, nodded once to Alexander without speaking. "Hansen," Alexander introduced briefly as they climbed into the vehicle. "Former Navy SEAL. Man of few words but impeccable loyalty." Hansen drove with the calm precision of someone who had navigated hostile environments for decades, taking back roads and service paths that avoided the main checkpoints. They passed one police roadblock by joining a convoy of maintenance vehicles, Hansen's uniform and the van's official markings sufficient to wave them through without inspection. "Your resources are impressive," Maya observed quietly to Alexander. "I maintained certain connections after leaving government service," he replied. "People who share my concerns about domestic surveillance overreach." "A private network of former intelligence operatives," Sophia translated, her tone mixing professional admiration with sisterly exasperation. "Always the contingency planner." "It's kept us alive so far," Alexander pointed out. The manufacturing plant appeared abandoned at first glance. Weathered buildings with broken windows, surrounded by chain-link fencing posted with faded "no trespassing" signs. Hansen drove directly to what looked like a collapsed loading dock, but as they approached, a concealed door in the concrete barrier slid open, revealing a passageway large enough for the van. Inside, the contrast was immediate. While the exterior maintained its derelict appearance, the interior had been converted into a functional operations center. A sleek private aircraft, a modified Cessna Citation, waited on a short runway visible through large bay doors at the far end of the building. "Hansen will fly you to New Hampshire," Alexander explained as they exited the van. "The aircraft has stealth modifications and signal jamming capabilities. As far as radar is concerned, you won't exist." Maya caught his phrasing immediately. "You said you, not we." Alexander's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Someone needs to create a diversion. Pierce and his team are too close and they have too many resources tracking us. If they all follow my trail north while you head northeast..." "No." Maya's response was immediate and firm. "We stay together." "Maya." "She's right," Sophia interjected. "Splitting up increases vulnerability. And if you're captured, your connection to us would be leveraged immediately." Alexander looked between the two women. recognizing the tactical truth in their assessment. It compromises operational security to have all of us in one location. It compromises it more to have you in Pierce's custody, Maya countered. James tried to fight this alone. I won't lose someone else to Oracle. Something shifted in Alexander's expression at the comparison to James, a recognition of what her words revealed about her feelings. After a moment, he nodded his agreement. We go together then. Hansen, prepare for immediate departure. The pilot moved to the aircraft without comment, beginning pre-flight procedures with efficient precision. Meanwhile, a communications specialist approached with updates on Pierce's search patterns. They've expanded the radius to include northern counties, the woman reported, showing satellite imagery on a tablet. Formal alerts have gone to all transportation hubs within 200 miles. They're pulling out all stops for this one. Expected, Alexander said. Initiate the false trail protocol. I want them chasing ghosts across 3 states by midday. Already underway, sir. Digital footprints, credit card traces, facial recognition hits, all pointing toward Washington, D.C. As the team prepared the aircraft, Maya found a moment of relative privacy to examine the Oracle files again, searching for anything they might have missed in their initial review. One folder, labeled simply Personnel, contained profiles of the program's key operators. She scrolled through them, recognizing some names from her time on Sentinel, until a particular entry made her breath catch. Alexander, she called quietly, her voice tight with controlled emotion. He joined her immediately, concern evident in his expression. What is it? Maya pointed to the screen, where a personnel file displayed a familiar face, James Collins, her fiancé, listed not as missing or deceased, but as active asset controller status. He's alive, she whispered, stunned disbelief warring with desperate hope. According to this, James is not only alive but working for them. Alexander studied the file, his tactical mind analyzing implications rather than surrendering to emotion. Updated 6 months ago. Current assignment listed as Project Delphi, some kind of Oracle offshoot. That's impossible, Maya insisted. James would never willingly work for the program after what he discovered. Willing is a relative term, Sophia said grimly, having joined them. There are methods of persuasion beyond conventional interrogation. Chemical compounds, psychological conditioning, compliance programming. Alexander finished, his expression darkening. I've seen it used in black sites overseas. Personality overrides that leave technical skills intact while realigning loyalty parameters. Maya felt physically ill at the implication. They took him because he knew too much, then reprogrammed him to work for them. The horror of it, James's brilliant mind turned against everything he believed in, was almost too much to bear. Alexander's hand found her shoulder, steadying her. This changes our mission parameters. If James is alive, we find him, Maya said immediately. We take down Oracle and we find James. First, we get to Vance and secure the evidence, Alexander said, practical even in this emotional moment. Then we use every resource at our disposal to locate James. Hansen approached to inform them the aircraft was ready. As they boarded, Maya's mind raced with the implications of what they'd discovered. James alive but compromised, working on something called Project Delphi that was potentially even more dangerous than Oracle. The Cessna lifted off smoothly from the short runway, keeping low to avoid conventional detection patterns before climbing to cruising altitude once they were beyond metropolitan airspace. Maya sat beside Alexander, the evidence drive secure in a specialized case between them, her hand occasionally touching the necklace that had led them to this revelation. If they turned him, she said quietly, can he ever be brought back? Alexander considered his answer carefully. Compliance programming isn't permanently effective without ongoing reinforcement. The original personality typically remains intact beneath the conditioning. You sound like you've had experience with this. Some of my former operations involved extracting assets who had been subjected to similar protocols. He met her eyes directly. "Recovery is possible, Maya. Difficult, but possible." An alert from the cockpit interrupted their conversation. Hansen gestured them forward, pointing to a radar display showing aircraft movement patterns. "Military interceptors," he explained tersely. "Non-standard search pattern, moving in our general direction." "They shouldn't be able to track us," Alexander said, studying the display. "They're not tracking us specifically," Hansen replied. "They're performing a systematic grid search of the entire airspace. Given enough time, they'll find us through visual identification regardless of our stealth systems." Sophia joined them in the cramped cockpit. "We need to change course. If they're searching systematically, we need to be where they've already looked." Hansen nodded agreement, already adjusting their heading. "I can take us lower, use terrain masking through the mountains. It'll burn more fuel but make visual acquisition nearly impossible." As the aircraft descended, following valleys and ridgelines to avoid detection, Maya returned to the main cabin to secure their equipment for the more turbulent flight path. Alexander joined her, helping to strap down cases that had shifted. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice pitched low enough that only she could hear over the engine noise. "About James's file." Maya tensed. "What about it?" "The authorization signature for his recruitment into Project Delphi. I recognized it." "From where?" Alexander's expression was grim. "From my former agency. The director who signed off was my direct superior before I left government service." The implication settled heavily between them. "You worked for the people who took James," Maya said, a question in her tone rather than an accusation. "I worked for an organization that apparently became involved with Oracle after my departure." Alexander's eyes held hers steadily. "I left because I saw where things were heading. Increased domestic surveillance, predictive modeling applied to American citizens. What I didn't know was how far they'd go or how quickly." "Did you know about Oracle before I told you?" "I knew rumors of a program in development. Nothing concrete, nothing that suggested they were actually disappearing American citizens." His hand found hers. "Maya, if I had known—" "You would have what?" she asked. "Exposed it yourself? Become a target like James?" "Yes." The simplicity of his answer carried absolute conviction. Without hesitation, Maya studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. Finding none, she made a decision to trust him completely. Perhaps the first time since James disappeared that she had fully trusted anyone. "Then help me find him," she said. "Help me bring down Oracle and find James." "I will." His hand tightened around hers, sealing the promise. The aircraft continued its evasive path through mountain valleys, each mile taking them closer to Eleanor Vance and the possibility of exposing Oracle to the world. But now, with the knowledge that James might still be alive, Maya's mission had expanded beyond justice and vindication. Now, she was fighting for rescue and redemption as well. As they approached the New Hampshire border, Hansen's voice came over the intercom. "We've got company. Fast-moving aircraft on intercept course coming in from the southwest." In the cockpit, Hansen indicated a blip on their specialized radar. "They're flying a search pattern, but it's targeting our specific route. Someone knew we were coming this way." "How?" Sophia demanded. "The flight plan exists nowhere. The airstrip isn't on any charts." "Someone talked," Alexander said grimly. "We have a leak." Maya felt cold dread settling in her stomach. They were so close to reaching Vance and the security of her facility, so close to the possibility of finally exposing Oracle and perhaps finding James. "Options?" she asked. "Alternative landing site," Hansen replied. "There's a private strip about 40 miles from our destination. Rough, but the citation can handle it." "Do it," Alexander ordered. "Then ground transportation to Vance's facility." As Hansen banked the aircraft sharply, beginning their diversion, Maya found herself thinking of James, not as the compliance-programmed operative in the file, but as the brilliant, principled man who had given her the necklace, who had risked everything to expose Oracle. "I'm coming for you," she whispered. her fingers closing around the golden key pendant. "Whatever they've done to you, I'm coming." Beside her, Alexander's expression reflected his own silent determination. Whatever came next, they would face it together, against the full resources of Oracle and whoever had betrayed their escape route. The aircraft descended toward the alternative landing site, and the final phase of their dangerous journey began. The makeshift runway appeared before them as Hansen brought the Citation down in a controlled descent that pushed the aircraft's capabilities. Tall pines bordered both sides of the narrow strip, leaving minimal margin for error. Maya braced herself against the turbulence, hands gripping the armrests as the wheels touched down with a jarring impact. The Citation bounced once, then settled, racing along the rough surface before coming to a stop mere yards from the tree line. "Everyone out!" Hansen ordered, already powering down systems. "They'll have satellites redirecting to this location within minutes." They evacuated swiftly, retrieving essential equipment and the precious evidence drives. A weathered groundskeeper's shed stood at the edge of the clearing, and Alexander moved toward it with purpose. "Transportation," he explained, unlocking the padlocked door to reveal a dusty but well-maintained SUV. "Part of the emergency network I established after leaving government service." "You have caches everywhere," Sophia observed, helping transfer their equipment to the vehicle. "Paranoia serves a purpose in our line of work." Alexander checked the vehicle quickly, confirming it was operational. 23 miles to Vance's facility. We'll avoid main roads." As they prepared to depart, Maya's secure phone vibrated with an incoming message, the specialized device connected to Vance's network. She checked it, then looked up with alarm. "Vance says her security systems have detected multiple surveillance drones in the vicinity of her facility. She's implementing lockdown protocols." Alexander frowned. How did they find her location? That information was compartmentalized. "The same way they found our flight path," Maya said grimly. "We have a leak." They all fell silent, the implications settling heavily. Someone connected to their escape had betrayed them, someone with knowledge of both the flight plan and Vance's location. "Hansen," Alexander said finally, turning to the pilot who was completing the aircraft's shutdown sequence, "did you transmit our position to anyone during the flight?" "Negative," Hansen replied, his weathered face impassive. "Standard protocol, complete communications blackout except for the secure channel to your network hub." "The network hub," Sophia said, realization dawning. "If it's been compromised, everyone connected to it would be exposed," Alexander finished, "including Vance's location." Maya was already messaging Eleanor again, warning her about the potential compromise. The response came seconds later. "Alternative rendezvous point activated. Coordinates attached, come alone." "She has a backup plan," Maya reported, relief evident in her voice. "Secondary location, 15 miles west of the original facility." Alexander nodded, decision made. "We move now. Hansen, destroy the aircraft's navigation and communication systems, then make your way to Extraction Point Delta. We'll reconnect when this is over." The pilot acknowledged the order with a crisp nod and set to work. Within minutes, they were in the SUV, Alexander driving with the focused intensity of someone well-versed in evasion tactics. The vehicle moved smoothly along forest service roads, avoiding populated areas and main transportation arteries. "We need to identify the source of the leak," Sophia said from the back seat, where she was monitoring for pursuit. "If your network hub is compromised, nowhere is safe." "I designed that hub myself," Alexander replied. "Multiple security layers, quantum encryption, physical isolation from external networks. The only way in is through the authorization codes assigned to my most trusted associates." Maya, examining Vance's coordinates on a specialized mapping device, looked up sharply. "How many people have those codes?" "5. All former colleagues with impeccable credentials and shared concerns about government overreach." 5 potential leaks, Sophia concluded. and no way to determine which one without direct contact. Alexander's expression hardened. There's another possibility. My former agency has resources beyond conventional hacking capabilities. If they suspected my involvement, they might have deployed specialized assets. Like James, Maya said quietly. The name hung in the air between them, the man who had once been Maya's fiancé, now potentially a reprogrammed operative working for the very system he had tried to expose. If they're using James against us, Alexander said carefully, it would explain how they're anticipating our moves with such precision. He knew you, Maya, knew how you think, how you'd operate under threat. The painful truth of his observation struck Maya deeply. James had been her partner in work before becoming her partner in life. They had designed security systems together, anticipating and countering potential threats. If his expertise had been turned against her, we need to assume they know about the alternative meeting point as well, she concluded, forcing tactical thinking over emotional response. We need a countermeasure they won't anticipate. Something James wouldn't expect from you, Sophia added, understanding immediately. Maya touched the necklace, the golden key that had started everything. James designed this expecting me to think like myself, like the person he knew, but I've been someone else for 3 years. Maya Jackson instead of Amara Jenkins, Alexander said. Exactly. Maya's mind raced through possibilities. James would expect Amara to approach this like a technologist. Secure channels, digital verification, remote access. She looked up, decision made. But Maya would do something much more direct. She outlined her plan quickly. A bold, high-risk approach that bypassed typical security protocols in favor of direct action. Alexander and Sophia listened intently, offering refinements but recognizing the strategic value of unpredictability. They'll be watching for us to approach Vance's backup location, Maya explained, so we don't go there at all. We bring Vance to us in the last place they'd expect, somewhere completely public. Maximum exposure, Alexander nodded, appreciating the strategy. Somewhere Oracle can't operate without revealing themselves. Maya sent a carefully coded message to Vance, proposing the new rendezvous point. The response came quickly, a single word. Understood. They changed direction, heading toward a destination that represented the antithesis of covert operations, the bustling Conway State Fair, an annual event that drew thousands of visitors and, crucially, maintained comprehensive security camera coverage and media presence. Public exposure as security, Sophia observed as they approached the fairgrounds, seeing the crowded parking areas and teeming midway. Elegant in its simplicity. And completely contrary to intelligence tradecraft, Alexander added, which makes it perfect. They abandoned the SUV in the crowded parking lot, blending with the fair-going families as they made their way toward the prearranged meeting point, the central exhibition hall where a technology showcase was underway. Inside, the cacophony of announcements, conversations, and demonstrations provided perfect audio cover as they navigated toward a display of agricultural innovations. Vance was already there, disguised as a middle-aged farmer in practical clothing and a worn cap, examining a soil analysis system with apparent interest. "Remarkable technology," Alexander commented, stopping beside her as if admiring the same display. "Completely changes the landscape." "Indeed," Vance replied with the prearranged response, "though traditional methods still have their value." The brief exchange confirmed their identities. Maya positioned herself on Vance's other side, casually passing a small case containing the evidence drives. "Everything you need," she murmured. "Complete documentation of Oracle operations, authorization signatures, target lists." Vance nodded imperceptibly, securing the case within her farmer's overalls. "My team is in position to release everything simultaneously through 17 international outlets within 2 hours. Once that happens, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle." "What about protection for Maya?" Alexander asked. Oracle will still have resources, even after exposure. International oversight team standing by, Vance answered. UN Human Rights Commission, European Parliament representatives, international press. They're waiting at a secure location to take your direct testimony, creating a very public record that makes any attempt against you politically impossible. Maya felt a weight lifting, the first real hope of ending her years in hiding. But one crucial question remained. "There's more," she said quietly. "James Collins, my fiancé. He's alive, possibly being used by Oracle as a programmed operative on something called Project Delphi." Vance's eyes widened slightly, the first crack in her professional composure. "Delphi," she repeated. "We've heard whispers. Supposedly the next evolution beyond Oracle, predictive capabilities expanded to economic systems, political movements, social trends. Total spectrum dominance," Alexander translated grimly. "Control through prediction of every major societal system. And they're using James to build it," Maya said, the horror of it renewed with each repetition. Vance glanced around carefully before responding. "I have contacts in a specialized medical unit that works with deprogramming political prisoners. If we can extract him—" "When," Maya corrected firmly. "When we extract him." "When," Vance acknowledged with respect. "They can help reverse the compliance protocols, but first we need to locate him." "The Delphi files might tell us," Sophia suggested, "if they're as comprehensive as the Oracle documentation." As they spoke, Maya noticed Alexander's sudden tension. His gaze had fixed on something across the exhibition hall. "Pierce," he said softly, "by the eastern entrance, and he's not alone." Maya looked carefully, spotting the familiar figure of Marcus Pierce scanning the crowd with methodical precision. Beside him stood a man whose silhouette sent a shock of recognition through her system. Tall, with the slightly hunched posture of someone who spent too many hours at a computer. Even at this distance, even after 3 years, she would know him anywhere. "James," she whispered, her hand automatically reaching for the necklace. "He's with them." Alexander's hand closed around hers, steadying her. "Remember, if he's been programmed, he's not acting of his own free will." "We need to move," Vance urged. "My security team can create a diversion at the north exit." "No," Maya said, decision crystallizing with unexpected clarity. "I need to see him, speak to him." "Maya, he's not himself," Alexander cautioned. "There's still a part of him that's James," she insisted. "The necklace proves it. He created it knowing someday I might need it. A key to unlock the truth. That doesn't come from someone completely lost to programming." Before they could stop her, Maya began moving toward James and Pierce, navigating through the crowd with deliberate purpose. She felt Alexander and Sophia following at a distance, positioning themselves to intervene if necessary. As she approached, James turned as if sensing her presence. Their eyes met across the crowded hall, and for a moment, Maya saw something flicker in his expression. Recognition, confusion, a struggle beneath the surface. Pierce noticed the exchange and moved to intercept her, but James put a hand on his arm, stopping him. Words were exchanged between them, too distant to hear, but the body language suggested disagreement. Then James was walking toward her, his movements stiff but determined. Pierce followed closely, hand near the concealed weapon Maya knew he must be carrying. They met in the center of the hall, surrounded by oblivious fairgoers examining agricultural displays. 3 years of separation, of grief and searching, condensed into this singular moment. "Amara," James said, using her real name. His voice was the same, yet somehow flattened, as if emotions had been carefully excised. "James," she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady, "you're alive. You're wearing the necklace." His eyes fixed on the golden key at her throat. "You found what was inside." "Yes." Maya took a careful step closer. "I know about Oracle, about what they did to you, about Delphi." Something struggled behind his eyes, the programmed operative battling with the man he had been. Pierce moved closer, tension evident in every line of his body. "This is a security matter, ma'am," Pierce said, his hand closing around James's arm. "Please step back." Maya ignored him entirely, her focus solely on James. "You gave me this necklace for a reason," she said, touching the pendant. "You knew someday I'd need what was inside. That part of you is still there, James, still fighting." James's expression flickered again, awareness warring with programming. Pierce's grip tightened on his arm. "We're leaving," Pierce ordered. "Now." "The evidence is already being released," Maya continued, speaking directly to James. "Oracle is exposed, it's over." Pierce moved with sudden violence, reaching for his weapon, only to find his arm caught in Alexander's grip, the gun deftly removed and disabled in one smooth motion. "Federal agents!" Sophia's voice rang out with authority, her Interpol credentials displayed. "Everyone remain calm." The commotion attracted immediate attention. Fairgoers backing away, security personnel approaching, media cameras turning toward the disturbance. Exactly as Maya had planned, maximum exposure, making covert action impossible. In the chaos, James's eyes cleared momentarily, true recognition dawning. "Amara," he said again, but differently now, the voice of the man she had known. "You did it. We did it," she corrected gently. "Your evidence, your sacrifice." His hand moved shakily toward the necklace, touching the golden key. "The key within the key," he murmured. "The final code is in the stone itself. Quantum dots, pattern recognition." For Delphi, Maya realized. "You embedded the shutdown protocol for Delphi in the necklace." "Failsafe," James nodded, the programmer briefly overcoming the programming. "If they ever used me to build it." Security personnel had surrounded them now, responding to Sophia's credentials. Pierce was being detained, his protests falling on deaf ears as Vance approached, her farmer's disguise abandoned as she displayed press credentials to the gathering media. "James," Maya said urgently, sensing the moment would be brief before his programming reasserted control. "Come with us. We can help you." Confusion clouded his features again, the internal struggle visible. "I can't. The protocols." He looked at her with momentary clarity. "But you have everything you need." His fingers touched the blue stone in the necklace once more. "It was always for you. The key to everything." Before she could respond, the specialized security team Vance had mentioned arrived, creating a professional perimeter around them. In the controlled chaos, international officials emerged, the promised UN representatives and European Parliament members, creating an immediate and very public record of the Oracle exposure. Maya found herself separated from James as he was taken into specialized medical custody. Not arrest, but the beginning of the deprogramming process Vance had promised. She watched him go, heart aching with the complex emotions of finding him alive yet changed, present yet distant. Alexander appeared at her side, his hand finding hers. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "We'll get him back, the real him." "I know," Maya replied, fingers touching the necklace. The key that had unlocked not just Oracle's secrets, but the path to finding James and, perhaps, someday, restoring him fully. As international media documented the unfolding story and Vance coordinated the worldwide release of the evidence, Maya stood beside Alexander, watching the system they had fought against begin to crumble under the weight of exposed truth. "What happens now?" she asked, looking up at the man who had become unexpectedly central to her life in such a short time. Alexander's hand tightened around hers. Justice, healing, beginning again. His eyes held hers with the same intensity she'd first noticed in his office, lifetimes ago. "Together, if you want." Maya thought of the road ahead, the public testimony, the dismantling of Oracle, the long process of helping James recover. None of it would be easy. But for the first time in 3 years, the path forward wasn't shadowed by fear and isolation. Together, she agreed, the golden key warm against her skin, no longer a hidden reminder of loss, but a symbol of truth revealed and connections restored. As the afternoon sun slanted through the exhibition hall windows, Maya Jackson, once Dr. Amara Jenkins, stood at the threshold of a future she could finally begin to imagine, one where secrets gave way to truth, where what was broken might someday be healed, and where the key to moving forward had been with her all along. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.